everybody here has gone to a museum at least once in your life. But I have wondered if you ever have wondered what's happening behind closed doors in a museum, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to tell you about some things that happen behind closed doors in a museum. Museums not only exhibit objects, that's not just one of their functions, of course, education, try to reach to people and presents them the object, but they do also have to take care of the objects that they are holding in their collections. So to do this, museums have something that's called a preservation plan, and that's what I'm going to try to explain you here very briefly. So to start, so as I was telling you, museums not only exhibit objects, they do have to take care of them. For this, they have something that's called a preservation plan. A preservation plan is a program in which there are many aspects involved. So we're going to start talking of three aspects. One is preventive conservation, and then something that's called intervention. Those are three aspects very important when it comes to preservation plan in a museum. Preventive conservations are the actions taken around the object. They are never in direct contact with the object. Barbara Applebaum, a very well-known conservator, she talks in one of her books Guide to Environmental Care of Collections. She talks about the very importance of preventive conservation because it's one of the cheapest ways to take care of objects. You don't have to get involved with them directly, and it can prevent a lot of the damage that involved in a preservation plan. There are things like are involved like facilities, personal, budgeting, emergency procedures, security measures, all these things that are not directly involved with the object, but that are around it and take care of it. Okay, in the conservation part are the actions taken around the object but are in direct contact with it. So this involves things like framing, exhibition cases, the storage facilities themselves, containers, all the things that are around the object that are in direct contact with them. In this case, Anne Clapp, which is a very well-known conservator, a paper conservator. She has written a book called Curatorial Care of Works of Art on Paper. In this case, we are seeing just an example of how pictured, in this case, a watercolor should be well framed of all the components in the case of a conservation framing case. Intervention is like the last step of them all. In this case, are all the actions taken in direct contact with the object or to the object. In this case, instead of trying to prevent damage, we are correcting damage. So are things like if an object is broken, it has missing parts, there is some damage on the object, there is some people called conservators who have to take care of them and work with them itself. In this case, we are seeing a conservator working on a work of art on paper. She is doing a procedure that's called lining, which is giving a second support to the original work on paper because it was very brittle in that case. And Barbara Applebaum, in one of her books called Conservation Treatment Methodology, talks about this step, which is intervention, as it's the most expensive. You have to have somebody who's taking care of each object at once. So it takes a lot of labor and time. It's time consuming. Therefore, it's very expensive. So that's why there is an emphasis on preventive conservation. To try to close, I did this illustration just to try to make things clear. So preventive conservation is the broader of them all. It tries to involve all the things that are surrounding the object: budgeting, personnel, lighting, climate control, all those things that are not in direct contact with it. So we're just seeing that it's like around. It can handle a lot of objects at the same time. Then we have conservation, which starts to get close to the object. So we have there again framing, storage, aspects like that. And finally, intervention, which in this case is the part that is more close to the object and direct contact with it, which is the more expensive, but at the same time can only be taken in object by object. It's not something that you can do in a broader manner to a lot of them, but it just has to be like one by one, so that's what makes it so expensive. So, as you can see, museums not only have to exhibit their collections and with those educational purposes, but they do have to go through all these processes just behind those doors.